Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Welcome, everybody. In very kitzer, we will share that Baruch Hashem at Living Chassidus, one of our goals is to help women in all stages in life, and one of the aspects that we deal with in our demographic is women that are primarily in Shidduchim or married, and Shalom Bayis is a very practical and applicable topic. Necessary, yes, absolutely necessary topic. And Baruch Hashem, over the last 14 years, my husband and I have worked extremely hard through learning Chassidus, through trial and error, through speaking to Mashpiyim, and it has been a really wonderful experience, and we've been able to help a lot of couples through our experiences. I'm a certified mikvah.org Kallah teacher. I am a volunteer staffer for the Purity Helpline, which is an anonymous helpline for women asking Taras Mishpacha questions to Kallah teachers. My husband is certified chosson teacher and also a great guy. So a few months ago, we did I don't know if you guys remember, but we did a dinner where we sat together with everybody and said, what do you guys want? What do you want for the upcoming future? What programs should Living Chassidus put together? And one of the suggestions was to do a joint husband and wife talk about different aspects of marriage and relationships. So this is thanks to your suggestion. So Kallah to you guys. And I also want to give a huge thank you to Adela Bookman. She sponsored tonight Leila Nishmas Rabbi Chaim ben Avraham of blessed memory, who passed away on Friday and was a true example of Shalom Bayis that was quite palpable in his home. Also a refuah shlema for Sheva Chaya Mushka Bas Netel and for Meir Tzvi ben Maryasha Malka, Chaim Meir Tzvi ben Maryasha Malka, and for all of the hostages and for the safety, strength, and success of our Chayalim and Mashiach now. So thank you so much, Adela. And with that, do you have something that you want to start with, or should I get the topics?
Question.
Well, maybe let's start it with a topic and then open up for questions, unless whatever you guys want. Does anyone have any questions they would like to? What would you want to know about Shalom Bayis or communication?
We can only speak for ourselves. How do we, let's say, get our spouse on board, or how do you bring it up as like, this is something important?
Meaning there's something on your mind that you find important and you're looking for tips or ideas of how to even start the conversation. Okay. Very cool.
Something specific or?
Well, both. In general.
The general,
like you're saying, in general as a necessity, and even when it comes to particular things in regards to
Shalom. Okay. Should we answer now, or should we get into it and then come back to it?
Whatever you want.
Okay.
It's a good question.
It is a great question. I think let's give a backdrop of the mindset, and then we'll go back to it because I think it'll tie together. So, one of the beautiful things about marriage is that in reality, I always say, like, the chuppah is has a magical power. The chuppah has a magical power of really and truly reuniting two half souls. So under the chuppah, it's two human beings, a man and a woman. And one of the reasons it says that the Kallah goes around the chosson 7 times is because back in the days where Yeshua traveled and was conquering Eretz Yisrael, Hashem told him to circle around a walled city 7 times, and suddenly the walls broke. So Chassidus explains that when we go around, we are making we're breaking the differentiation between man and woman, and at that point, we are becoming one. That said, in practicality, we're still two human beings with very different desires or natures or opinions sometimes. And so the question is, how do we show, or how do we show this greater growth of our neshama becoming one into actual physical, palpable oneness? So the whole idea, the whole concept of Shalom Bayis is, or communication, is bringing that reality of our two half neshamas becoming one into actual practical life. So how do two human beings get to know each other? Essentially, is through speech. I don't know what you're thinking. I could see you smiling, I could see you grinning, I could see you crying, but I don't know what you're thinking until you share it with me, or until I make an opening that then you feel comfortable to share with me. So here, when we have that backdrop of what is the purpose of communication in Shalom Bayis, and the purpose is becoming one, then everything else kind of makes sense. I remember when we first got married, we were discussing that one of the things that it was very clear in our minds that we never wanted to end up being two separate beings under the same household. And sometimes it happens in marriage that life gets busy. We start, taking care of children and financial pieces, and it ends up becoming more of a transactional relationship, and we're just busy taking care of the day-to-day life that we tend to forget to reconnect in that deeper level. So this idea of not just allowing the two people to live simultaneously within the same roof, but really become one, is based on communication. It's based on speaking to each other. It's based on opening up. And that takes vulnerability and setting up a safe space for both of you to be able to share where you're feeling and how you're feeling and what's going on. Does that make sense? Do you want to take it and share something?
The only thing I would add, well, first of all, you said a lot. I'd say it's also meaning. I think what you're trying to, like what you're saying, is that together with that, is that we don't want to just live under the same roof. Like we want to be together. Because like you're saying, as life gets more and you have kids and stuff, it just gets very busy. And suddenly you're sort of living in the same house, doing the same things. Let's say you could be making dinner and the husband's whatever, bringing the parnasa, but you guys aren't actually the marriage aspect of it is not really there. I think what you're trying to, one of the things you're trying to say is you're making a conscious effort that we don't just provide for the family, which is very important. I'm not diminishing that; it's very important, but we also make the marriage a priority.
Correct.
And you could use it maybe the same mashal with Atan Hashem. We could do all the mitzvahs, but we're not connected at all, and there's no immersion, and we could be perfect in everything that we do, but Hashem's not involved. So part of our relationship with Torah mitzvahs is Hashem. So too with marriage, it's not just doing the right things, and the husband could do the right things and the wife could do all the right things, but together with that, it's like, I guess it's like a story once that we went for Shabbos somewhere, and the wife asked the husband to come home to help. The husband decided that we should buy flowers for Shabbos. So he went and got flowers instead of coming home.
He was excited to buy her flowers for Shabbos. Meaning he was doing it for her.
Yeah, whatever. The point I'm trying to bring out is that we could be doing the right things, but it's not. We have to remember there's a relationship. It's not just we're doing the right things. Like you could go every week and buy flowers, it can be meaningless, or it can be very meaningful. It's not just the action of what we're doing. It's not like, you're taking care of this and I'm taking care of that, but we're taking care of it because we're in a relationship called marriage together.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah.
Okay, so another aspect of this, which may be a shock, or may not, but the concept of healthy disagreements. I know that I remember before I was married, I had this concept that the word Shalom Bayis means that everything's always flowery and beautiful and rainbows and butterflies, and if it chas v'shalom there's something that we disagree on, we should just pacify and cool it down. And there is a beauty in that. There's definitely a lot of beauty in having extra chesed and having extra sensitivity to your spouse and trying to not create extra things to, be different on or have a difference in. But I do want to share that when every person brings in their unique talent or their unique perspective, their unique approach to life, the entire marriage and the entire family benefits so much. Anytime I come and I have something that is possibly a different viewpoint than my husband, we both benefit by having and being honest about that viewpoint, obviously in a sensitive way, in a nice, gentle conversation, preferably not fighting and screaming, chas v'shalom, but being the actual part of you and bringing that part of you into the marriage is so beneficial for both of you. I feel like if my husband sometimes, let's say I have a different viewpoint, he's like, okay, it's fine, we'll just do it your way. I'm like, no, but I need to hear your way so that we can grow together. We can push each other beyond both of our boundaries. So there's, especially in the beginning, I think used to be more like, okay, it's fine, we'll just settle it. I'm like, but no, I need to hear what's actually going on. And through that, we were just discussing on Shabbos how much I feel like I've changed. I've grown as a human being and as a wife and as a mother and as a shlucha and as an everything, just because I was able to make space for a little healthy disagreement, a healthy perspective, and hearing his perspective and having to be sensitive to his perspective and vice versa. I think you can share, but if you benefit from hearing mine,
So let me just, I think, clarify what you're trying to say.
Yes,
and I think it's a very, I think this is a very important point. I shouldn't be speaking, but this is more for the women, but this is just an important point we're trying to bring out. I think you just maybe make it a little clearer, is that we think that the goal of Shalom Bayis, or a goal of a good marriage, is that there's no arguments. But it's like saying the goal is to be a tzaddik. The reality is we're not tzaddikim. And really, like it says, meaning the tshuva is the distance and the return, which means in the marriage, it's not that I can have good marriage if I just don't say anything. But I learn what my husband likes, or my husband learns what my wife likes. And I don't have my opinion. I just keep quiet. Well, what's a compromise? I just keep quiet about it. It doesn't. That's not a real relationship. It doesn't really work. It's not a long-lasting solution. And really, it's not that. Then what ends up happening is you're living a married life, but you're not really married because you're not there. And the challenge, but the beauty of it is learning how to talk. It's not always so easy, because you have to learn for yourself. As Manas Friedman says, the best thing for a marriage, a new marriage, is a good fight. Why? Because what he goes, this is how he explains it. But what happens? They get into a fight, and at a certain point, the husband says, "What do you want? Let me know, and I'll do it. Whatever it is, just tell me." And at that point, the wife's like, I have to think about what I actually want. But the point is, what really is happening, you're going to a deeper level. The purpose of opening up, and like my wife was saying, you have to learn how to not be rough, you have to be sensitive, but the idea is, to have a good marriage, you have to be totally there. Just like our relationship with Hashem, this is, coming to Yud Shvat, Bas Lagani is essentially that I have to have a relationship with Hashem. It has to be me. This is one of the biggest, I think, novelties of Chabad Chassidus, is really that Hashem wants a relationship with you. He doesn't want you just to do the right things, but he wants you. And so too in the marriage. Marriage is not just about doing the right things, and I can cook well, and I can be a good wife, or I can be a good husband, but it's about me bringing myself into it. So that takes learning how to, you have to learn how to be able to bring yourself into the marriage. And so when you come and you sit there, and let's say your husband says something that's totally in disagreement with what you say, it's very difficult. You have to learn how to speak up about it. Of course, not in a rough way, in a sensitivity, but to say to yourself, I'm not going to talk about it because I'll be a good wife or I'll be a good husband. It's not going to last, and yeah, it just doesn't last and doesn't work well. And the challenge, and it's a very big challenge, is to learn how to like say, can I say something? I don't know how to say this right, especially in the beginning. I'm not sure how to say this correctly. I'm not trying to like argue to get into a fight. This is how I see things, and you learn. It takes, marriage takes time and practice, but it's very important. The thing that you're trying to say, and it is very important to really put yourself in there. And ultimately, this is something that I thought about, and I said this once, and someone told me, he's like, "Yeah, what do you mean? It's David Achtanim." But I had this like idea, and this is, I think it's very important, which is the most important thing when you get married is a good marriage. Like if that's one, if you don't have any money, you don't have, everything is you struggle with, but you have a good marriage, you have everything. There's nothing more. You're gonna live with that person for the next 60 or whatever, how many years? 100. To live with that person that you get along with, there's nothing more important, nothing greater. And that's why. And so I said in the Ferrari when I said that, like, it seems to me that marriage is like the most important thing. Like that's like more important than anything else. And I looked around to see what they thought, and they were like sort of what's the big chiddush over there? Yeah, that's like obvious. It's like dibur dachtanim. Yeah, that's it. But I think it's a very important.
The opinion is common, but the how.
Yeah, exactly. Actually doing it. Yeah.
What if someone's like, how do you?
That's a great. Never. So the question was, how do you not get defensive when you're having an argument? That's a really, really great.
Can you explain that a little bit?
I should have.
You can. What does it mean?
Okay.
She'll tell you if you're correct.
Okay, you'll tell me if I'm correct. So if I understand you correctly, then one of the ways, basically, if you're having an argument and your spouse says something, and that something, it touches on a nerve, on a sensitive part, or it insults you, or it hurts you, or it bothers you, or you completely disagree, and you have like a adverse reaction. So then how to not have that, right?
Meaning the adverse reaction is not because of what they said. Meaning it's not the content, but it triggers you.
I don't know. I was gonna say I was gonna go more general than that.
Yeah. Like how do you give space and not
So.
I mean, is the disagreement because of you just disagree what they say, or it just because they said it? And
no, like you're having a heated argument. Like let's say
healthy disagreement.
No, like you're having, I don't know, like or whatever it is. Like those things are like important.
Okay.
So the kids' schooling is a perfect example. We had like 2 years ago, and this was something that like I was like, man, this is amazing. We should do this all the time. So we talk about the communication a lot, and so one of the things that happened, we had to make decisions about kids' schooling for the upcoming year, and it's a very heavy topic. It's a shame when you come to that time, you shouldn't have that issue, and you just there's one school, whatever it is, but we had to talk about it. And what we understand is that we're two separate people with two different ideas, and we've been married for a while then already, over 10 years. We had to have a discussion about it. So what we talked about was, before we discussed the practicality of which school we're going to send them and how we're going to do it, I said, let's just have a conversation of what's going on inside. What are we talking about? Because in life, there's two different discussions.
Two tracks.
Yeah, especially when you're newly married. There's doing, let's say you're going shopping. So there's the practical aspect of shopping and buying stuff. But then there's like, especially in the beginning of marriage, you're like living your parents' life, and you're like, wow, when I was a kid, I went shopping and did this way, and so you have to like buy certain things in certain ways, and it has a whole emotional side to it. So when it comes to, let's say, schooling or myriads of things, Tishrei, going to shul on Shabbos meals, there's the way you have Shabbos meal and how you envision it, and then there's the practicality of it, and then there's your husband's version. So I said, let's just talk about what we feel, what's like going on inside of us, because I could tell it was very emotional. So we both had a discussion about the emotion behind what we felt and what was like our discussion. And it had nothing to do with practicality. and we just understood each other, and we listened to where they're coming from. Understanding is a discussion we have to have, but it's like we understood each other, and it wasn't like there was less of what you were saying of the question about like, yeah, you're not defensive. There's nothing to be defensive about. It's not like we're making a decision here. We're just telling how we feel.
We're just being sensitive to each other's feelings
Exactly.
and making a safe space for the other person to share how they're feeling.
And,
it was so crazy healthy. Like, it was wild, especially because it didn't have the weight of, we're not actually making a decision right now. We're just making space for each. And again, this was a very emotional conversation in our lives at that point. And to just make space for each other without the weight, without the heaviness, without the but just how do we feel about this? How do I feel? What does this bring up in you? How do you feel this is gonna affect you or the kids, or just the feelings was really great.
Yeah, and once you've had that discussion and you both understand where it's coming from, like a simple example, it's like what's like I feel this school is like too big, or this school is too small, or kids get bullied, and all these things. So once you've both talked it out, you both understood each other. So then you know where everyone's coming from, and then when it comes to the practical discussion of what should we do, you feel the person gets where I'm coming from, and then there's it's not defensive. A lot of times we feel like I think the biggest thing that we can achieve, and like the most important part of it, of the relationship, and this is with everything, is understanding the other person. And that's, I guess maybe we'll discuss it. But in that scenario, we understood each other first. Then when it came to the actual discussion of what should we do, it was actually very simple. And yeah, we understood each other.
Yeah, and also it came together as a clarity from the benefit of both of our shared perspectives.
Yeah, because if that would have happened, and let's say I would have talked, say this is my opinion, and I'm the man, I'm in charge, and I don't want to hear what you have to say, Lamasha, let's say. So then she might just say, yeah, whatever, I'll be a good wife. But every day that kid is in school, if she's not happy about it, it's going to bother her, and she's going to nitpick on everything and complain about everything, and it's just going to be bother. So that's like what I'm for. You have to always be there, like
Yeah. So that was one practical tip about setting up a time and a space for an emotions conversation. In order to make that safe space, we should also be as conscious as we possibly can about speaking nicely. And it's so funny because like we've all either been through preschool, taught at preschool. We all know about like speak nicely, nice words, like we all say it, but sometimes when it comes down to it, it's not so simple to really have that clarity when we're about to speak. And sometimes things come out that we regret. So right. So step one is being sensitive in your words, and really trying as hard as possible. It's not always we live in Galus, and you're gonna make mistakes, and your spouse is gonna make mistakes, and that's just how the world goes. But step one is at least try. And if they feel like you're at least trying, then you're a million steps closer than not. The other aspect is, how can we think about what the other person is feeling, or what the other, and if we preempt that in our thoughts, then our speech is going to be a lot more fluid. We'll have a lot more perspective of what they're going through. Okay, another tip, which it's a little off, but I will come back to it. But one of the great ways to set up these types of conversations is to sit together and look forward in the calendar. What's coming up in life? Whether it's Purim, whether it's Shvat, whether it's Tishrei, whether it's a birthday, and really set the time to discuss each other's expectations for that. A lot of tit for tat and a lot of arguments and a lot of fights come up when we have either unspoken expectations, or we get surprised by our spouse's unspoken expectations. So let's say it's a birthday. I know it's less romantic, so to speak, to be like, I would really like this. But if you do that and you do it more often and more consistently, then he's going to start to understand how you really function and what you really like and how it goes. So he'll be able to really provide you with the things that you need in the way that you need them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
With all these conversations, like it seems, how does it become like a fluid thing? Like some guys don't like to talk a lot or talk about feelings. Like how is it more of a like flexible kind of casual thing, not like uptight or like we gotta talk about this? Because like I feel like some people I know get intimidated by that. You don't want to hear feelings and discuss things.
I feel like it's two. I feel like it's two questions.
Okay, yeah. So like, okay, it sounds like one thing you're saying about feeling, because the other thing you're also saying like how to not make it all the time heavy.
So to me, from what I understand from the other person, it like goes together. Like I don't want to talk about the feelings, and why is this such a like? Maybe they'll be more open to talking about it if it's not a like strict kind of like we have to. Oh, perm's coming. We have to talk about it.
So if I understand correctly, your question is, sometimes it sounds a little bit heavy. You always have to have a discussion on everything. Like, why do I need to do this? And what if they're not comfortable with it? So I don't know, maybe she'll have more of a PC answer, but I think in general, like life, the reason why we say this is because we went through it, and life is the test of it. Meaning we used to have this, I don't know if it still exists these days, but when you guys date, when we were dating, so everyone says, I want to marry someone Chassidish. Yeah, that word like annoys me, because what does that mean? It's such a like a random word. And so for everyone it means something else. So the joke is, and we used to have this joke, is that when two Chassidish people are getting married. So the first Shabbos, the husband, and there's a lot of variations, and we've seen this. So it's not like I'm making this stuff up. But we'll do the PC version. So the husband gets up 6:30 in the morning, and he's ready to go out the door. Yeah, Shabbos. Yeah, exactly. Like Shabbos.
Exactly. There
Exactly.
we go. First example. Here we go.
Yeah, and so as he's about to leave, his wife, and he doesn't want to disturb his wife, won't let her sleep a little bit. So as he's about to leave, she's like, "Where are you going?" So he's like, "Shabbos." So this is what's happening. A little background. When a man is getting married, normally, I don't know how it is nowadays, but like they talk, it's like you want to be Chassidish. You don't want to, like the worry is you get married and you stop being a Chassidish, you stop doing all the things you should do in yeshiva. Balabatish. So the guy doesn't want to be Balabatish. So what does he do? So how do you stop being Balabatish? Make sure I'm up first thing. And there's, a man of foot of us woke up someone at 6:30 in the morning. He's like, what are you doing still sleeping? It's Shabbos, how are you sleeping still? So the guy says, I want to be a chassid, so I'll get up. He doesn't know that his wife doesn't know this farang he had. That's how it is. So he goes, he's like, I'm going to go to the mikveh. I'm going to go to Chassidus, and I'll daven, and I'll be good, and I'm not going to stay at the farang. I'll come home, whatever, 1:00. She looks at him like, this guy is like, what happened to my husband? Like, I'm lost. And so she goes, yeah. And like, and so in her head, you're like, what's this guy? Like, how's he eating? And in his head, like, this is how it works. You go to the mikveh, you get a coffee and a piece of cake, and then you learn and you daven, and that's it. So as he's about to leave, and she's like, what happened? She's like, you're not going to sit down and have breakfast with me? And he doesn't know what to do with himself. Well, breakfast, like, and he didn't tell you. I thought she was Chassidish. She's telling me to eat breakfast, Shabbos, a bacha. Shabbos morning never had anything but cake and coffee, maybe cereal. It was not like a proper breakfast. It doesn't exist. So what I'm saying is, it's like we don't have to have the discussion, but something's going to be weird over here, and he's not going to know what to do with himself, and he doesn't know what to speak. Especially in the beginning, you don't know. Like we're talking sort of hindsight 2020, so it all makes sense. And now you hear the stuff, like it makes sense. But when you're there, you don't realize this, and you're just confused. But what are you asking? And she's confused. Like, why is he going so early? Like I don't get it. The meal's only at 1:30. You're like, why is it 6:30? Like, so it could happen a few times, and somehow that figured out. But then if you get a little smarter, you're like, hey, one second. What does Shabbos mean to you? And also like she was saying with like the birthday. we're not saying take away the surprises, but if you have a vision of a birthday that your husband meant to do for you without him knowing, especially in the beginning, he doesn't know you, and maybe his version of a birthday is totally different. So if you don't have that discussion, or you say, so what's going to happen? You're going to be disappointed. And you're like, why don't you, like when I was a kid, my grandfather, Shalom, he came, it was like my mitzvah time, and he came, whatever, it was from Brazil, and I was in Australia, and he came, and he comes to me, and he was make me a coffee. So I said to him, what do you want inside? Like milk, sugar? He's like, make me a coffee. So I was like, okay. So I went, and I put, some I made him a black coffee, coffee and water, and I gave back to him, and he looks at it, he sips it, and he's like, what is this? And the sugar and the milk. You didn't tell me what you wanted. How am I supposed to know? So too in this scenario, like if you don't have that conversation, a man's version of Judaism, Yiddishkeit, and Chassidishkeit, especially if you live in Karnais, is very different than a woman's. And that's why these discussions, you don't like, if it's uncomfortable, you just have to try. And when you get slammed, chas v'shalom, but it's nothing wrong. It's the man Hashem said, a good fight. And you're like, well, what's the problem? And she's like, I don't understand you. Like, why didn't you give me all these things for my birthday? He's like, how am I supposed to, like, that's not how I celebrate my birthday. And then you realize. And another story that's like this, and we talked about this back in the day of Living Chassidus. One of the girls, she got married and she was going on a honeymoon. And so my wife told her, like, by the way, before you go, you guys should talk about what your expectations are. So she was like, okay, fine, sounds good. They're on the plane and they go into their vacation, wherever it is. And she says, how do you see this vacation of ours, this honeymoon? So he's like, how do I see it? What do you mean? What the question? Like, it's a vacation. She's like, well, what does that mean for you? So he was like, for me, vacation, I don't know, like just you sleep in, eat breakfast in bed, and you just hang out and do nothing. So she was like, whoa, I'm so happy we had this discussion. He's like, what do you mean? Like, what's your version of vacation? For me, a vacation is I'm up 6:30, I'm touring the place, I see everything, I'm exhausted at the end of the day. That's a vacation for me. Now, Baruch Hashem, they talked, so one day they did her way, one day they did his way. But imagine if they didn't talk, what would happen? I can imagine. He's sleeping, she's up at 6:30, and she's wondering why this guy is not getting up. It's like vacation and you're still sleeping. And
so many tourist spots to hit.
Yeah, so about 8:39, he wakes up a little bit and he sees her dressed after breakfast, like ready to go, giving him this like dirty look. And he's looking at it, he's like, what's going on? He's like, good morning, darling. She's like, wants to kill him. And he's like, what? And he doesn't understand why. And so the whole day should be pretty unhappy. And he has no clue why he's so, like, what happened? Why is someone happy? So that's why you have the discussion in the beginning.
Yeah. After that, she said you saved our vacation. Okay, so just to jump ahead a little bit, I'm just checking the time. But one of the most important tools that we discuss and we learned in our life is the concept of taking an emotional pulse. I think you probably have seen me do this before. I actually do it with all my Kallahs. I'm like, what's your emotional pulse? So this applies to every aspect, whether it's roommates, friends, coworkers. Sometimes we come into a situation and our emotional pulse and the current situation don't match up whatsoever. I was recently, it was like right before my kids came home, and usually I try to like put my phone to the side, away, hide it in the cupboard. And right before that time period, I got some not settling news. And I just remember my daughter coming home and she was so excited to see me. And I was just so snappy. And it had nothing to do with her. I was just processing the information that was heavy for me that I'd heard right before. So taking that emotional pulse sometimes helps you realize that the fight that just happened or that seems like it's about to happen has nothing to do with your spouse. It has a lot to do with what you're dealing with. And sometimes when you can enter the environment and say, oh, 1 second, this doesn't, I'm not feeling settled. The other one is hungry, angry, tired, or lonely, right? Those are the famous ones nowadays. If you're feeling any of these things, just have that awareness. Take your emotional pulse and see how can I either be aware of this and try and settle myself, or how can I let my spouse know, by the way, I'm kind of cranky. Nothing to do with you. I'm gonna take, I'm gonna take care of myself, or I really need to make myself some food, or whatever it is. But once you're aware of where you're holding, then the upcoming conversation or the upcoming event will be not as eventful, hopefully. Do you have something you want to add on this?
No, I guess you just meaning. I think what you're trying to say is that this is something you learn. Like the difference, I think, between getting married or being married and being single is being single in many ways. You have your own space. When you get married, you don't just have a roommate like you have when you're single, but it's like that person is part of you. So what you do makes a very big difference. And so if you're in a bad mood with a roommate, you just stay quiet and you just do whatever you want to do by yourself, and it's your freedom to do that. But at home, when you're married, you can't just ignore your spouse. So then what ends up happening is you have interactions, but if you're not in that good place, so those interactions don't work so well. So what you're saying is,
or they feel cold, and then the other spouse is like, why are you acting so cold with me?
Yeah, exactly. So what you're saying is and this is what you notice when you get married, like you start to have to become more sensitive, and you realize I think one of the things I find funniest is you realize how much of an effect your eating has. I'm like, am I hungry? Like, am I tired? And taking care of those things will make a very big difference in that conversation or just in that interaction, like when they come home. Yeah.
Another point to share is, while having these interactions, to try your best to put yourself in your spouse's shoes and be considerate of them. This is not just the concept of bishvili nivra olam. It has a little pause when it comes to marriage, because it's also for your husband. And being sensitive to him or her, your spouse, and really taking a point. On the one hand, not to take it too far to make assumptions. If you know me for 5 minutes, you'll know me and assumptions don't work. I do not like the concept of assumptions. You come and you tell me this thing happened, I'm like, okay, how much of this are you making an assumption? Don't make assumptions about other people. You're probably going to be wrong and then regret it. So on the one hand, don't make assumptions about extra sensitivities on his behalf or her behalf that you don't have or that they don't have. But on the other hand, really try to be considerate and make a safe space. Because if they come and they share their perspective and you shut them down, attack, snap, then they might hold back from sharing their perspective again in the future, and then you'll miss out on the opportunity to grow from their perspective. So it's not simple and it's not easy, and it takes a lot of saying sorries and a lot of tshuva. But it is a mindset to try and be considerate of try and be considerate of your spouse, which then leads into the concept of saying sorry and how powerful a real heartfelt sorry, not sorry out of self-deprecation. Sometimes when we do something wrong or we hurt another person, we jump into, I'm so terrible and I'm so bad and how could I have done this? And like we attack, which at the end of the day still ends up being self-centered. A real sorry, a real apology comes out of the other person centered. And understanding what the other person, how that person was hurt, and whether you're right, he's wrong, she's wrong, whoever's wrong, doesn't really matter at this stage. What really matters is that we hurt someone's feelings. So having that sensitivity with that. Yeah.
A perfect like source of this is an end of Parak Chav Vav of Tanya. It's probably my favorite like line. When I first like understood it, I was like, wow, this is so awesome. So Alter says over there, you can all check it up. It's in a lot, like right near the end of Parak Chav Vav. Alter says that when you do an Avera, and even if you did a Avera, he writes, Averas Hamuris, severe sins, worst of the worst. You have to say to yourself, now's not the time. Because now I'm meant to serve Hashem b'simcha. I'm meant to be happy. Like an action in life, I'm meant to be happy. I'm meant to be an enjoyable person, especially in the marriage. So he says, you tell yourself, like he goes, as we talked about the specific times, there's Kriya Shashalamita on a Thursday night. He goes, and over there you think about, so what do you think about when you did these severe sins? And so you say, now I can't think about it, but now I have to be happily serving Hashem. But when I have the time to think about what should I think about, so what do you guys think you should think about? I don't want to try and answer. What would you think about? I don't get what I'm saying.
How terrible you did. No, I mean that's what a lot of people think that they should be thinking about.
You did a very, chas v'shalom person did a very bad avera, and so Alter was telling you, now's not the time to think about it, but you have to do your work. But then I'll give you time to think about it. So what are you going to think about? Think about how bad you are, how bad what you did. And Alter says you have to think about Hashem, whom you've sinned against. And you can check it out. It's beautiful. Meaning, even after you did the Avera, when you have the time to think about what are you thinking about? You're not thinking about what you did. You're thinking about who you did it to. And that's sort of my way of saying, like if you realize you did something wrong, the Yetzer Hara's tendency is to sort of beat ourselves down and say, oh, I'm not good. See, how would I do this? I want to have a good marriage. I came to Shalom Bayis, and this is how I'm speaking. That doesn't help anyone. For sure not you, and for sure not your spouse. To help your spouse, you have to think about how your actions affected them. You say, I'm sorry that I hurt you. What I said hurt you. And like she's saying, it's a very big difference. That's real tshuva.
Yeah, I think that's
And Michal, also like you were talking about before about speaking, one of the things I took on, I don't know where I got it from, but like I'm very happy I did it, and I think it's important. Like axiom, it's also now you're in the stage of like dating and stuff. You want to try to shape to yourself what's important to me in my marriage that I should like hold. And one of the things I said I never want to say anything that I regret. I have to like I regret saying, I feel bad saying. And I think for the most part, I've been good.
Yeah, no.
But it's just like these things are very important. Like our words make a very big difference for ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, but also for our spouse. And so just being careful the way we speak, and realizing that this person that I'm with and I'm married to is like everything. And also I think, I don't know, it's here, but like something that like I thought about is that, in the beginning of marriage, especially when you're dating and you get engaged and you're like, man, we are so alike. It's amazing. Like, I've never met someone so alike. And then a few months in, suddenly you're like, I don't know how I even thought I was ever alike. I don't see anything the same. We're so different, so weird. And then you come to realize, like, it's different levels of unpacking. But
the core basis is still alike.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing is, and part of like we learn chassidus like bittul is, it's very important that we don't look for all the faults in our partner, because if we want to be honest, and this is the reason why you shouldn't do it, but if you want to be honest, if you're looking at the fault in your partner, you have to also look at the fault in yourself. But the problem is, by ourselves, we're biased, so we think we're very good, and I think that having that attitude, being able to recognize that as much as everyone has faults, my partner also has faults, but I also have plenty of faults. And when you come that way, you're much more excusing and forgiving, and also you realize that you're able to see more of the good in your spouse versus not.
Yeah, what you're focused on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm aware of the time. Are you guys up for a couple more, or should we? Yeah, everyone okay? Okay.
If you don't have any questions.
Yeah, anyone have any questions or thoughts so far?
What are people? I guess maybe a question I have. What are people most worried about? Well, just one thing.
Can I just say, I was
Yeah.
feeling the question of like, how would you not get offended? I was thinking like, if it's viewed as something that's not personal, but it's just like a sick conversation that we're having, and you're not attacking me, then already you could choose to have that perspective, and then you don't need to absorb whatever they're saying as like a personal attack.
Oh, so true. That is so good. I also realized I forgot to mention it. Thank you. 2 thumbs up. I realized that when like during our first year, when we were like trying to settle these types of conversations and how to do it right, and we made a conscious decision that in our marriage, it's not going to be my way or your way. We are going to share each other's perspectives, and we're going to find a joint way. And that shifted the way the conversation went. It wasn't, I'm trying to prove my way because this is the right way. And exactly. It was what is the Torah's way? What is our joint? How are we coming together into this? And especially when it comes to Torah mitzvahs, it was there's how are we finding that wholesome, healthy, right perspective, I guess you could say. And that came out of joint, both of us bringing in and not getting attackive and defensive, but definitely the mindset of it's not mine versus yours just sets the tone of the conversation. We're joining together to find a joint solution. That really helped.
Like, I don't know, like now it's like an example. I don't know, like that we did discuss it and still you're not like you can understand it, but you still. I don't know, like that you're not getting to that point in certain scenarios of finding that cohesiveness. That you're hearing the other person and they're hearing you and you want to make it work, but it's like there's still something not settling.
That's a really great, for me, but for me, when I feel that way, I find 2 solutions. One is it tells me that I don't feel like I'm fully understood. And having a conversation, which is the next section I was going to go into, but like having a conversation where I really feel like he understands me. And number 2 is that it probably means I don't fully understand him either. If I still have a chip on my shoulder, it's because I feel like that chip hasn't been like acknowledged, and I feel like it's possible I haven't fully understood his perspective.
What if it's not a chip? Like you say, would there be times that you decide to make a decision that you're not like chip on your shoulder that you're upset about, but you're like, I wish it was this way, but like I understand where we're going this way. Like meaning like a little bit sad and that like this is not sad again, like in that overall, but meaning like whatever, like this is the way I have to go.
So
like I don't know.
So unless you have, I was gonna make it a shot, but if you, I think there's a fine line, hard to tell, but it's a fine. Oh, okay. Our kids are wondering where we are. I think there's a fine line between joining.
Is everything okay?
Between joining together and having a little bit of disappointment that it didn't go fully your perspective. At the same time, if it's weighing heavily emotionally and it's like a constant, like a pebble on your shoe feeling, then I would definitely go and do this whole feeling understood and understanding, and that should be able to ease that. Because if
You don't have to feel like it's static. Like I'm saying,
Exactly.
You don't
So,
have to get to the point where like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful this is the decision. Like you know, like
Correct.
Shalom Bayis isn't like necessarily like I'm ecstatic every decision decided.
right, 100%. Well, yeah, we're not robots. We're not robots. It's not like, oh my gosh, A equals B, and we decided that it's gonna be C and whatever, and therefore I'm like that's not what we're expecting. But if, and this is why we really don't like the word compromise, because compromise means you're both coming out unhappy. You both come out with a chip on your shoulder. You both come out with some pebble in your shoe. So here, if you're having that, then something didn't fully go, and reattempt the conversation with a lot more understanding, both on his side and on your side. Does that make sense?
I just want to add to it is that like for sure there's like small things that it doesn't really matter to you. But when it comes to something that's very big, so you have to like, it's like what she's saying, like you gotta also we didn't really discuss in detail feeling understood. But the learning how to talk and understand someone and having and feeling understood, it's one of the most amazing feelings you can get. And it will take away a lot of the friction. So like, is there a case that you'd still get stuck? So there is sometimes you'll have to make a decision that's, let's say, against what you want. But once you understand where the person is coming from, you understand that this is the right thing. So you have the chip is much smaller. A lot of times the chip is big. That's what you're saying. Chip is big because you're not understood and like it's still bothering you. And so
And you feel like you have to fight your battle to like
yeah, you have
get
to
him
prove.
to get your point.
Yeah,
Or,
that's why a lot of times people you ever notice people have a like discussion and they keep on saying the same thing, and it's like you're not arguing, but what they're really doing is they're trying to get you to understand their point. Another person trying to get you to understand their point. If they both stopped and A would say to B, "Let me understand you," and then B would understand A, then they would stop talking. But they keep on going because they're trying to. And a lot of times in relationships or marriage, it's the same thing. You're saying something, and the other person is saying something else, and it's like you're not actually saying. It's not even you disagreeing, or you're just like talking about two different things. But what's really happening is you're just trying to feel understood. And Michal in in the therapy world, they talk about it a lot. That the most you can do, more than anything else, is just make the person feel understood. And if you think about it, a simple example you notice if you read the Rebbe's letters, a lot of the time, most of the time when the Rebbe answers a letter, the Rebbe will start by saying, in reply to your letter that you wrote about such and such, this is my answer. And I think what he's doing is he's setting up the stage for you to understand. I understand what your question was, and based off if I understood correctly, this is the answer. And it's an important idea to understand each other and to like come from that. Well,
sometimes validating is okay. How about we do a quick crash course on this whole understanding concept. So the idea of understanding each other is to number one, make a safe and vulnerable space for both of you to have a turn at sharing your perspective.
I think just like more like before that is like because we're saying some things, we're saying the same thing, we're meaning different things. Or we're talking about schooling, or talking about big Chassidish, but on time, shopping. But what we mean when we say that, you have a whole life of meaning behind it that's very different. So if you don't have the discussion and you don't understand each other, you're in conflict, because we say I'm going on time. For one person, it means you're there 20 minutes early, and the other person means you're there 5 hours late. So if you say we're going on time, and then the person that's 20 minutes early is waiting, the other person hasn't even started thinking about it, there's going to be conflict. So to move past the conflict is learning how to communicate and understand each other. Yeah, 100%. Agreed. So number one, the most incredible and life-changing feelings is when you feel like someone truly understood you. I don't know if you've had this, but like you have like a DMC with a really close friend, and you share something deep, and you feel like she got it, and she has that sensitivity to see you
where you are, how you're holding, that feels so healthy. It feels so safe and wonderful. And that's part of the process in marriage. The way to truly understand and make that space to understand each other is through being able to be there for each other in that deep way. And it stops becoming, for example, someone who's quote unquote allergic to like emotional conversations. It might get easier when they feel that amazing feeling of like, whoa, she really got me, or he really got me. And in order to do that, number one, we want to be able to set a space where we're able to listen. Many of us don't. It's crazy how little we listen these days. I remember once having a workshop with Rabbi Simon Jacobson, and he was teaching us. We were at that point in time, I was working in a different organization. I was on customer service type of work, and he was teaching us that in order to really truly capture every word that the Rebbe said, he had to completely clear his mind of his own thoughts and just practice intaking. Many times somebody's saying something, and what we're doing, we're fact checking, we're motion checking. How do I feel about what she just said? Do I like it? Do I agree? Do I see an example? Do I not? And that at that point, we're heading in our own conversation in our own heads, and we stop paying attention to what she said. And one of the main things that actually is a beautiful story, that at one point, right, Jacobson was so excited about something that the Rebbe said. He was like, wow, that's such a beautiful Chiddush in Chassidus. And the Rebbe stopped and waited, and then looked at him, and he like continued on, like, okay, yeah, clear mind, don't have my own, like, I don't jump on my own perspective. So here, it's the same thing. Don't make assumptions about what he's about to say, or just clear your mind. Take the emotion, your personal emotion, out for a minute, and just be present to whatever that your spouse is sharing.
Just add up, because also what they're saying a lot of times affects you. So you start automatically listening, like you're not listening to hear what they're saying. You're listening to figure out how to respond to this, and now like to argue or why that's wrong. But therefore you're not really listening to what they're saying.
Yeah. And then that, which brings up the next point, which is many times when somebody's saying something, we're arguing in our heads. Nuh-uh, it can't be. What do you mean? He doesn't get it, or she doesn't get it, or Machshane, calm down, relax. At this point, give space to listen to your spouse. Now, the flip side of the coin on this is that the spouse has to not speak for 20 hours. Give a 1 minute point, whatever you're going through, whatever you're feeling, share that for 1 minute, and then let the spouse do the next step. Because if it's going and going and going, that ability to just listen and not be pent up and ready to like jump back and get defensive or whatever, it's much harder. So if you do 1 minute spurts or 2 minutes,
as you get better at it, like when we do it, it's natural. It's not like, hey, let's do this talking conversation thing.
Right. In the beginning, it's a practice, but now
when we do it, like there'll be a point where you realize you lose the train of thought. So you're like, 1 second, I don't like, it's too far. Well, this is what I got, and then they'll know what to pick up and continue.
Yes. The next piece is that the process goes like this. The person shares, for example, I really have a hard time that the heating in the apartment is so hot and it's just suffocating for me. And then the person would then share.
Yeah, so the right way to say it. So yeah, using this example. So let's say you live in a New York apartment and the heating is going on, and the heating was too hot or too cold. And so let's say my wife tells me the heating is on, she complains about the heating. So if I'm listening properly, I'll say, if I understood you correctly, you're complaining that the heating is too hot when it should be less hot, and too cold when it should be hotter, and things like this.
Mm-hmm. And I say, yes, that's exactly what I mean.
So if you got it right, and first of all, the person, you'll feel it. And it's like, I don't know how to get people to do it, but you'll feel it. It's a clear feeling, like, wow, this is good. And also you'll have nothing else to say. You're like, yeah, exactly. And when I speak to friends and I do this, I can tell I did a good enough job is when they don't add. If they say, yeah, and they continue talking, that means you didn't really get it. And it's not a bad thing. It just means you didn't
There's
fully
more.
understand. Yeah, there's more. It's either they have more to add, or you didn't get it. And so you keep on, and you just listen, and then but once they understood, it really feels very validating.
Yeah. And then let's say the flip side of it is that, let's say for the other person, which is funny because in reality I flipped it here because I'm usually the one that's cold. The other person would then say his perspective, which is, I really wish that we wouldn't open the windows as much because it's very, okay, I'll flip it again. But
Well,
for me, for example, there's like, since there's undershirt, there's a million layers, suits and jackets and whatever. So the apartment the difference in temperature can be a lot more stark for me.
Yeah. Meaning we could do it the wrong way. It would be, I'm complaining it's too hot, and she's complaining it's too cold. So I'll say, it's so hot in here. So he's like, what do you mean so hot? It's so cold in here. So then we could just argue, and we'll go back and forth about how I'm trying to prove to you that it's too hot. You're trying to prove it's too wrong, too cold. That the understanding way is but you have to understand, it's hard a little bit because I'm here sitting there schwitzing away, and I have to put that feeling aside and look at her perspective. It's okay. Now I'm taking myself out of my shoes. It's like the mitzvah that he'd have to change. Like throughout the night of Yechidus, he changed his clothing so many times he schwitzed through. So they asked him what happened. He goes, because every time someone comes in, I have to undress myself and go into that person's shoes. They get dressed in his clothing, and then I have to hear him, and then I have to undress again and go back into my clothes as Rebbe and give him an answer. And it's very tiring going back and forth doing this. But essentially what he's saying is, like, I see the world from Rebbe perspective, and I need to go to the world of the chassid perspective. And he's totally, and I guess it's for him it's very difficult because he's on such a high level, and chassid issues on different level, but it's that process. And so too with us. So here I'm schwitzing, and I have to come and see how it feels for someone to be cold, which logically in my head it doesn't make any sense. But you have to
make that space. Yeah.
And then what I do, and I say, hey, I get it. So for you feel very cold because the heating's not going on hot enough or long enough.
Yeah.
Could I ask something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the name, whatever. But she was saying something, there's something you're never gonna agree on. Like that could be something you're never gonna agree on.
Yeah. Oh, it's very good. It's a good point. She was asking for the people that she's asking about, but you're never going to agree on certain things, and it's true. But we're not trying to agree. I'm not trying to prove to.
You need to come to like some kind of.
Okay, so in your place, you come to an agreement. But I'm not trying to agree. I'm not trying to prove her that she's hot. I'm just trying to make her understand that as much as you think it's cold, for me it's hot.
And can I also add there, even if, for example, this example we just gave is an understanding, but let's say it is your home and you do have to choose the temperature. The agreement comes as a joint agreement based on the sensitivities of both of you. So, for example, let's say for certain hours we will, and again, this is, I can give you the outcome. The outcome is not the point. The point is both of you joining together to make that decision together based on both of your sensitivities. So your creativity just doubled. It's not just your own creativity, but it's both of you working together to find the creative solution that will hopefully benefit everybody.
And I think also in that case that let's say you can't, it's just going to be sometimes too hot or too cold, but you're not doing it begrudgingly. You're doing it because you understand that your spouse you love is really cold, and it's not so bad for me if I'm a little hot. No, yeah. So what I'm adding is that it doesn't bother you as much.
Mm-hmm.
If someone comes and does something that's annoying, you get married and your spouse will do things that just like bothers you. If you don't understand why they do it, it bothers you a lot. But if you understand why they do it, it's like, all right, a simple example. Let's say in your house, when you put something in the fridge, it's always covered. And let's say the spouse, they don't have things covered. So what will happen is, so if you don't understand any history, you'll come and like, what is going on? Why are you putting things in the fridge? You won't say it, but you'll be like, this guy is crazy. He just doesn't he doesn't cover things, and it's crazy. But when you start to understand, so you realize, so you say, well, I don't understand why you push on the fridge on cover, it's like bad, and it's like, I grew up, whatever. So you have a discussion, you understand each other, and say, okay, fine, whatever, so I'll cover it. I'm saying it just, you come to a better understanding. And even if it might be a little bit annoying to you, I wish we just didn't have to cover it or whatever. But I understand where it's coming from. You see how if you understand where it's coming from, it's less
annoying.
Yeah.
Well, no, not necessarily. Correct. There's
still hot, but they're not presentable.
correct. You no longer have the resentment, but it's also the aspect of you came up with a solution together. Like for example, there's times like not talking about ourselves or anything, but there's times where the window, for example, in the morning, okay, when maybe I get out of bed, it's much harder for me to be level temperatured or whatever. So I'd really rather if the window's not open. So I hang out in places where the window's not open, and my husband hangs out in places where the window is open. And then later on, as I put on more layers or another sweater or whatever, so then I don't mind so much being those areas. But in the beginning of the day, if my apartment is cold, I'm very unhappy. So we came up. We didn't even, I don't think we even discussed it in like a clear way, but like we just came up with solutions to be sensitive because we're sensitive to each other and we understand each other. We came up with solutions to help.
I think also in general, like you're saying, besides the morning, it's also like there's more important things. That's like, okay,
yeah, but I'm saying these types of things is what gives us the practice. So we've used up our muscle of how to have these conversations that when bigger things come up, you already have the tools how to handle them.
Yeah.
What about like some things like they are personal, like if you're gonna bring it up, it's gonna be, let's say, insulting or like because it's, let's say, something about their personality or something they can't change. So like.
Very good question. So the question, if I understood you correctly, is that what if the thing that needs to be brought up or the thing that's bothering us, what if it's something about the person, and what if it's something that we don't think can really be changed? So then it's pretty hard to have that conversation.
I think also just it's even simpler. It's what if the discussion you want to have is about the other person. That's like they're the problem. How do you bring it up without being explain?
But it's not about you. I feel threatened, or I feel little, or I feel uncomfortable when this is done.
But if they're not ready to hear that, they don't care. They get defensive. They get defensive, like they still hurt.
So it's a little okay. So this one it's definitely a tough question, especially because it's a general question. So I don't know if there's like a klal. All these types of conversations should be dealt in X way, but I do think that starting by sharing your perspective with the I, as somebody was saying earlier, it's probably a good idea. I think also if it really is about the other person, I would start by thinking about ourselves, kind of like sometimes we blame the other person for something that really is, in our own pocket, so to speak. So I would start with that aspect personally. And then I bringing up the topic in a sensitive and loving manner. Like this could be a very sensitive topic, and I want to say this with the most amount of love, and I want to be supportive, and I want to discuss this piece. I wanted to see if there's anything we could do together, because this is, hurting my feelings, or it's really hard for me when XYZ or whatever. It's much easier if it's like a specific, scenario, and then we can troubleshoot how the person would react and how to handle it, whatever. But That's the general gist.
I think the main points you bring out is, on one hand, you shouldn't not talk about it. Yeah, on one hand, you shouldn't not talk about it. On the other hand, it's sensitivity. Thinking about how to bring it up, maybe, small conversations about like sort of side things that sort of lead to, and like also what we're talking about, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more you know how to do it, and the more the other person is more understanding. My wife would come and tell me that I have an issue that I need to work on. It wouldn't be a big deal for me. Of course, she said it in a nice way, but like, because part of the hardness of that discussion is, are we safe? Do we feel comfortable? Like, it's not just you're comfortable to share, that person comfortable to be vulnerable. Like the reality is, my wife knows me better than my family does. And just because I learn myself more, and I learn it with her, and like we discuss things, and I feel very comfortable to be vulnerable, not in like a bad way, but like to learn who I am with her. She helps me understand, and we're there together. So therefore, if I see something wrong, she would be able to tell me in a nice way, because I know she cares about me, because she's heard things and she's still around, So it
Which
takes.
is, by the way, a very valid point. That creating that safe space of like, quote unquote, unconditional love. Like, I'm here for you, and we're gonna do this together, and I'm making it safe for you to share, because I'm not gonna run away and.
Yeah, so you wouldn't do it in the first week. It builds over time, but like if it's something that's constantly bothering you, it's a sensitivity to figure out how to approach it, and also like like approaching it first, building a place of like love, like of connection, that you have a comfortability. The person's not going to get very offended, and you try.
What if there's another person that like you tried to have a normal conversation with, but they always think that they're the victim, and you are hurting them no matter what you say, no matter how you try to please them, and there's no one to talk to.
Okay, well, that's a much bigger question. If that's in your spouse, that's a whole other.
I'm not talking about spouse.
I know. That's a beyond the scope of the. I would be more of like a one-on-one, in my opinion, because I feel like there's a lot of sensitivities depending on what relationship, what are the like. There's just so many variables in that of how to handle it, but yeah, there's a lot more, and we're hoping to do this again, Be'ezus Hashem, if you would like to have this again. That said, it is getting late, and we want to close off. So again, one more time, I want to repeat. Give me 1 second. I want to give a very, very special thank you. I said this in the beginning, but a very special thank you to Adela Buckman for sponsoring tonight's event. Lili Nishmas, Rabbi Chaim Ben Avram Eliezer of blessed memory, who passed away on Friday, was a true example of Shalom Bayis that was quite palpable in his home. And also Refuah Shlema for Sheva Chaya Moshka Bas Netel, and I think you guys said they added Chaim, right? Chaim Meir Tzvi Ben Mariasha Malka, and for all of the hostages, and for the safety, strength, and success of our Chayalim and Mashiach now. Chaim, thank you so much. Hashem should bench all of you with finding your zivug, and if you've already found him, you should have incredible Shalom Bayis. It should be easy, smooth, and enjoyable. Chaim. My pleasure. If you guys don't mind, we have a tradition at Living Chassidus. We will do a selfie with both speakers. Then we're gonna. Right. That's the best corner. 1, 2, 3. Sorry. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.